What up, dude, bro? Spider-Man Jamiller. Today I'm looking at the X-Shot Clip Mania, a semi-automatic mag-fed blaster, which is essentially another Strife clone, but it's a very interesting one, so let's get into it. Included with the Clip Mania is the blaster itself, darts, dart holder, 3 magazines, flip mag attachment, and also mag holders. Blaster requires 6 AA batteries and are installed as shown. External overview starting up at the front, there is no strike barrel lug. Of course, this is an X-Shot blaster after all. Down below and on the sides and up at the top, we have the kind of X-Shot pick rails. They're kind of like Dart Zone pick rails, so they won't accept every kind of airsoft attachment, but the included attachments or the usual like Dart Zone attachments will work on this. And then back behind, we do have a jam door. To get in there, you just flick this open. That'll allow you to get your fingers in there to clear jams and malfunctions. I haven't had exactly jams with this blaster, but I've had a lot of malfunctions, which we will get into. Then down below, we do have the magazine. To remove the magazine, you strike the flappy paddle right here, and the mag drops out. The included magazine is a 15-round magazine. I believe it's the same as the one that came with the long shot. It's a pretty solid magazine, and it works pretty well. The feeding is good, and it actually feels pretty nice, and inserting the magazine is very well. And the magazine release is a paddle, which means you can strike it with your middle finger, or the more easier route, especially with this kind of design, you can use your firing hand as kind of like the AK style, which is amazing. And now getting to the magwell. And the cool thing about this magwell is it is cross-compatible with your Nerf magazines. Thank you, X-Shot. And it's amazing because even with the 18-round SIG mag, even though they have the little hump, it doesn't matter at all. And it does kind of gravity drop, but I'll note this, when I first got this out of the box, this was a pain to gravity drop. Now, it's getting pretty easy. And thankfully, with the little hump on the 18-round SIG mags, it's like almost non-existent. So thank you, X-Shot, for doing that. Now getting back to the trigger pull. The trigger pull is a mechanically operated semi-automatic system. It feels similar to a Strife. However, I have had a number of malfunctions due to this trigger. For some reason, it's either the pusher design or, as I recently learned, the magazine insertion, as it's not very stable in there, and that's causing the trigger to act up so badly, and I don't understand it. This trigger pull is not crisp at all. I actually do not like this trigger pull at all. Spoilers. Then getting down to the rev trigger. The rev trigger is another thing. I don't like this rev trigger design. It's very uncomfortable on the finger, but of course it is a semi-automatic system, so you just want to hold that for a moment before you start firing. And now getting back to the grip. The grip is actually pretty comfortable on this blaster. It's pretty ergonomic. It feels a little smaller than usual, but it's actually very comfy, even for an adult with large hands. However, I think this would be more comfortable for an adult with medium-sized hands or a child hand, which is pretty good. And then over on this side, we have the battery door. You take off these 2 screws and install your 6 AA batteries, which leads to pretty good performance. Now back to the stock. Now this is an N-Strike stock attachment point. Thank you, X-Shot. So if you wanted to throw on your included Nerf stocks, you can. However, this stock is actually pretty cool. So I'm pretty sure you all remember that from the pictures. We only saw this, and we thought, oh, that's not a good stock. It's very small. Push this button, which reveals an M4 style buffer tube, or more like the Dart Zone style buffer tube. So it's not entirely cross-compatible, but it's good. But the thing I was worried about, because this is X-Shot plastic, I thought this was actually going to be bad. But it's actually a very solid stock, and the length is really good. Of course, it moves a little like that, but you can't really do much about it without getting the worker component, which is so much more solid. But the stock is actually really well designed. It's long enough, and it actually feels really comfortable to shoulder. That's an external overview of the blaster. Now going over the attachments, one by one. Starting off with the mag holder. The mag holder is a system that you can put on any of the pick rails. I rather put them here. And what's cool about this design is if you are empty, you can drop your magazine, pull these off, and then you have ammo for days. However, this is a very loose component, and it doesn't do the best job at holding the mags in well. It does decent enough, but if you really jerk, it's going to fall off and hit my wall. So these aren't the best designed. However, if you're just having them look like a cool profile picture, it looks really cool. But as a practical use, you do not really want to use these because they do not hold magazines well as also when you're trying to hold the blaster. With a magazine over here, you really have to stretch around, which is not the most comfortable. So I would just recommend, if you do have these, just only use them for like a cool design. And of course, the insertion or placement is not really the most stable. It's stable enough, but they're overall very loose, and it's a kind of a difficult thing to get on. So just use that at your own risk. Next is probably my favorite attachment. This freaking flipping mag system. It makes it look like an extended AK magazine. It looks so stupid but funny. But the whole theory with this is like you're empty on this mag, so you just strike that and flip out to another one. This is so long, it's so impractical that one smack and it's gonna fall off. But looking at this, it just looks freaking hilarious. Just like running around with this, and it's like, ah! And it's like, oh crap, I forgot there's only a 15 rounder. I like this one. I wouldn't use this in a war, but it's so hilarious. And the magazine retention is as stable as it can be. It doesn't hold it perfectly well, not unlike the darts on products, which are really well tightly fitted. This is not the most stable, but it works well enough. And then, of course, it does have pick rails on the side, so you can theoretically put this on another part of your blaster, but you probably don't want to. And then the last attachment to go over is the dart holder. This dart holder works pretty well. It's pretty secure on there, except for right there. But it's made to do that, so you can kind of just slap this and put this wherever you'd really want it. This would really only depend on if you would want to store darts on there, because on there they look really cool, but practically with a mag-fed blaster, they kind of serve no purpose. But they hold the darts decently well, and they actually don't crimp the darts, which is what I'm thankful for. But it's a pretty good attachment for the most part, but don't use it if you don't want to. That's the whole thing with the Insanity line. They give you cool stuff that you can use or not use. That is an external overview with the Clip Mania and the attachments. Now I will show you with firing.
Firing included Insanity darts first, and included the mag. Now firing some Nerf Elite darts out of a Nerf Elite 15 round mag.
So firing the Clip Mania is interesting, and I want to go over why I've had a lot of feeding issues. So the trigger wheel itself, for some reason, just doesn't feel the most refined. And ironic enough, it's the same thing that we have with the Spectrum. So I'm really confused why we're having so much issues with it, because I can't go through a mag cleanly. Like almost every single shot is either going out, like getting stuck in the flywheels, or it's weird. And I could concur from Bricksource 227 that apparently the magazine also has a little bit of issues, because apparently, I think he described it, it's not supposed to be this loose. And that actually interferes with how it feeds, because especially if I just open up this flywheel door or jam door, you see it fire and you hear it. That does not sound like it's in harmony. It sounds like it's in pain. And the performance, well, that's also another funny thing. So I threw this thing over my chronograph, and with X-Shot and Sandy darts, I was getting an average of about 90 FPS, which is solid. But because of how many feeding issues I've had, that number was going down to the lowest 50s. It was going to high 90s. Like, it was insane. So then I threw Nerf Elite darts over the chronograph, and I got an average of about 85 feet per second, which is, again, nice. But those were also just spiraling out of control because of the flywheel cage, so it wasn't really that reliable. And that is all the objective information I can provide in this blaster, none of my personal opinion. With adequate firing velocity, I can't say this isn't a bad purchase. Like, don't get me wrong, the ergonomics on this thing are amazing. It feels great to hold, feels great to run on the field, and it's a very fun blaster. But however, I don't think I would be using this in a war because of this bad trigger. Like, I'm so disappointed in it because I really like this thing. I actually like the ergonomics on it. It feels awesome. It was actually probably going to be one of my favorite Stripe clones we've had. But the trigger pull on this is the most sloppiest trigger pull I think I've ever felt. I've never felt any other trigger pull like this. I don't understand it. Like when there's not even a dart in there, it feels crappy, but it's fun. And I feel like we're going to have this issue again with quality control where a lot of the triggers might be good for like the first 600 shots, but Brickosaurus now has one, which spoilers for anyone who's going to watch that review. Sorry, Bricko. But with that, it took him 600 shots to finally start having issues. Mine was having issues straight when I got it, and that's a little disappointing. I wish it wouldn't have the issues that it has. I love the fact that the magwell can take N-Strike magazines, which is awesome. So if you didn't want to use these, just grab some 18s, slap those in there, and just use them. But with that, it's hard for me to recommend this without at least acknowledging that this thing does have a trigger and X shot. I hope you guys watch this. Look, I'm not trying to hate on your product. I'm not, but if you either revise this or notice this issue, please fix this trigger. I'm begging you because this is what's kind of ruining my love for this blaster. So now to the question to buy or not to buy. If you are a performance gain nerfer, if this trigger were working, I would totally recommend it. But at this price range, I'd recommend the Thunderbolt. The Thunderbolt feels a lot better. The trigger pull on that is butter, and it feels a lot better. If this thing's trigger was fixed, I would highly recommend this. But I can't really recommend this right now in its current state unless you're a modder and you're going to go in there and fix that semi-automatic trigger. Otherwise, I can't really recommend you pick this thing up right now. And I'm hoping Xshot will see this and actually advise this problem. I think they already have, but I really hope they do that because I do want to like this blaster, but in its current state, I can't properly recommend it right now. But that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching, Dude Bros. Much love, blast on, and as always, stay technical.